Welcome everyone to this is the second public involvement meeting for Lake Drive, which is Highway 32, from limits from Newberry Boulevard to East Edgewood Avenue within the city of Milwaukee. So just kind of a friendly reminder, like I tried earlier, just a note, this meeting will be recorded. Please mute your microphone or speaker. If you have any questions, please turn on your microphone and state your name so it will be recorded for further input. Also, if you can't wait for the end for the questions, please type it in the chat box or just leave a comment there. Also, when you are ready to ask a question at the end, please raise your hand and we'll call about that person in order that was received. So this is the presentation agenda. First of all, we're going to introduce the project team and what's the role in the project. We're going to have an overview, what is the goal of the project, what is the scope, how is the funding works, and finally the project schedule. Also, some of the one of the third agenda item, which is the historic preservation. We have some historic properties within that segment. We'll also share the existing conditions and the design alternative. We have done parking study and we'll share with you guys the results, and also we'll share the next step following all of these agenda items. So finally, number 6, it will open it for any feedback, questions, comments, anything from that sort. Okay, so here's the project team. Myself is Christine Hanna. I'm the DOT project manager. I oversee the project from scoping till the end of completion. Sam?
Yeah, my name is Samuel Medden. I am the project manager from the city of Milwaukee side. Also, I would like to introduce a couple names that I invited for this meeting from other city sections. Scott Reinbacher from traffic engineering is in attendance. Also, Brian Rothgary from water department and Carlin Hatala from city historic preservations are also in attendance, particularly during the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. David?
My name is David Beach. I'm a project engineer. I'll be leading the design process and doing completion of reports.
Okay, thanks, David. And Megan?
Hi, guys. Thanks for being here. I'm Megan O'Connor. I work for the city of Milwaukee, and I serve as a project liaison. So you'll be receiving contact or updated information for this project from me leading up to construction and then throughout construction.
Great. Thank you, everyone. So let's go to the next. So the purpose of this meeting, we would like to update the community, either the local community or outside, on the project status since the first public involvement meeting, which took place July 15 of 2020. We're going to be presenting the design alternative that we have put together thus far. And we want to hear feedback from you guys or anybody else that you can get some more feedback or information from. So the goal of this project and why we're having this project in the program. Number 1 is we need to upgrade the pavement conditions and traffic signals. We also want to preserve the historic features along that segment. We'd like to better organize all modes of transportation, bike, traveling cars, whatever that may be on that route. We want to improve the visibility for all users. And also, we want to make travel safe and comfortable for all users. So we have the scope of work is pavement replacement work. What does that mean? It means removing and replacing deteriorating pavement. We're going to be removing and replacing curb and gutter, driveway approaches, and sidewalk. And also, we'll be bringing the curb ramps to be ADA compliant. Number 2 is we're going to be improving and upgrading drainage structures. all street lights and traffic signals. Third, we're going to be enhancing pedestrian and bike accommodations per federal and state guidelines. So we're going to be talking about the cost so everybody's aware of where it stands today. The current construction cost is between $5 to $6 million. So from the design perspective, 75% of the cost is covered by the state and 25% is covered by City of Milwaukee. Now for the construction cost, 78% is covered by the federal and state funds and 22% covered by the city. And this is due to the parking being covered by City of Milwaukee. Okay, so here's the project schedule. If we go back, like I just mentioned earlier, July 15 was the first public involvement meeting. And in January, we submitted the 30%, which is very preliminary design phase of the project. Today we have 2 meetings, or this week we have 2 meetings. Today is the virtual, and tomorrow we're having the in-person public involvement meeting. Also in October of this year, we'll be submitting the design study report and the environmental document. I just want to emphasize, if you see my arrow here, tomorrow the in-person meeting is going to be located at UWM campus from 6:30 to 8:30. We'll have a handout and some notes in the end in the chat box. So now in 2023, we're going to be having, between February and April, we're going to have a 3rd public involvement meeting where we're going to show you the final design and how the road will be looking like. September, 90% pretty much is like the final phase of the plan, and November will be submitting the final plan. Really, there is not much between 90 and November, it's just to address some comments and details. So 2024, the pre-construction meeting with the contractor, spring of 2024, and April to November is the construction season. So historic preservation. So as you see, let me just move. If we look at the legend here, if you see those red dots, these are the historic sites, and that rectangle, the historic district boundaries. So we have 4 districts shown in different colors. So the City of Milwaukee and DOT are committed to the preservation of locally and nationally designated historic sites and districts along this Highway 32. And the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee were hired as a consultant to determine what's the impact with this project and all on the historic features. And I can come back to the screen when we're ready to have any questions. So North Lake Drive, we have the existing condition. So this project has been identified to be within the historic water tower neighborhood. So project basic is a state trunk highway, so connected highway, is being classified as a principal arterial. We have 10 intersections, several of them are T intersections. We have posted speed of 30 miles per hour. It has very high pedestrian walking districts, and we have average daily traffic from the segment from Newberry to Kenwood, about 6,100, and the volume from Kenwood to Edgewood about 19,000. Some considerations we have to be looking at when we put these projects into the design phase and finally implementation. City of Milwaukee to look at complete street policy with that design requirement. Historic sites and district along Lake Drive, like we just talked, the historic boundaries that was previously shown. We have the Lake Park, and we have proposed 2026 Lake Drive reconstruction in the village of Shorewood. Okay, so we have 3 segments on this project. They were divided in 3. The first segment, which is the north one, is east from Hampshire Street to Edgewood Avenue. The middle signalized one at Kenwood Boulevard is from East Kenwood to East Hampshire Street. And the south segment is from Newbury Boulevard to East Kenwood Boulevard. It's very important to notice those three segments because how we're gonna presenting those typicals is based on those segments. Okay, so here we go. This is the north segment is from East Hampshire Street to East Edgewood Avenue. So this is the existing, this is how it looks today. We have one travel lane in each direction. We have 5-foot 2 bike lanes on the east side, and we have 8-foot parking lane on each side. And outside behind that terrace and the tree area, we have a sidewalk of about 6 feet. So the existing roadway width is 46 foot. Now, this is the segment from preferred section. This is how we're going to be looking at that. So one travel in each direction, that did not change. We're going to have parking allowed on both sides of the roadway, and we have bike lane adjacent to driving lanes. So just the difference that happened here between the existing and proposed is instead of 8-foot parking, we put 7, so we can have additional width for the combined parking and bike lanes. Now we have the middle segment, which is from East Kenwood Boulevard to East Hampshire Street. This is the existing again. So this intersection is kind of divided in two ways or two sides by a median. So we have 2 10-foot drive lanes and outside 4-foot bike lane. Again, we have the 4-foot separating median. We have dual left turn lane, and we have one drive lane and right turn lanes combined, and we have another 4-foot bike lane on the outside. So this is the existing roadway width. It's about 62 feet from face of curb all the way to face of curb. So again, this is the middle section and this is the existing. Okay, so this is how our thing is going to look today. We have about 11 to 12 drive lane. We have the 6-foot bike lane. The median went from 4-foot to 6-foot median. So we have 11-foot dual 11-foot turn lanes. I'm sorry, the inside is 11, the outside is 10. And we have one 11-foot drive lane and outside is 6-foot bike lane. I don't know if some of you will be asking why is she going through all of those dimensions and why they are important and all of that. We'll answer this at the end, but just kind of a note, these widths are very important from the state and federal guidelines. If they go below certain numbers, it's not going to meet the standards and we have to do some different design. So just a heads up on that for now. So again, at the end, the existing 62-foot roadway width is going to remain, meaning we're not widening, we're not doing any change to the curb line. Okay, now this is the south segment. This is one is from Newbury Boulevard to East Kenwood Boulevard. This is how it exists and show today. We have one travel lane in each direction. We have outside 5-foot bike lane, and we have outside 2 parking lane, 1 in each direction. The width of the roadway from face to face is about 44 foot. So this is the alternative 1. Okay, we can remove the parking on one side, leave it on the opposite side, have the 2 travel lanes, 1 in each direction, have a 3-foot buffer between this parking lane and then 5 foot for the bike lane. And the reason for that is just we want the bikers to feel safe. And if there is any parking car here and they open the door, we don't want to have any conflict between the bikers and the parked cars. And again, on the opposite side, the only difference is we remove the parking from this side. And again, to keep the bikers safe and have enough width on the road to travel. So that was alternative 1 for this south segment. Alternative 2 is to keep the parking on both sides as they are today. We have two 11-foot driving lanes, one in each direction, and 5-foot on the outside. So it's going to be allowed, and it's going to be the bikes will be adjacent to the traffic lane. We're going to have 4-foot wider limits. I'm sorry, not limits. Roadway 4-foot wider on the east side. Okay, that's the third alternative. Again, is for the south segment. We're going to have one travel lane in each direction. That doesn't change. Parking will be allowed on both sides of the road and separated raised bike lane at sidewalk level behind the curb. Pretty much is self-explanatory. We left 5-foot terrace here, not just for light poles and other amenities, but also for snow removal and kind of storing it on the side so it doesn't interact with the bike lane path. So now this is almost like a summary of what I just discussed. The south segment, East Newberry Boulevard to East Kenwood, we have the existing, as you see here. I discussed alternative 1, which is remove parking from one side. Alternative 2, everything to remain as is, and which is going to have a wider 4-foot widening the road. And the third alternative, which is have buffered or separated bike lane, just take it all the way off the road, with parking on both sides and one travel lane in each direction. And this is another summary for the Newberry Boulevard to Kenwood Boulevard. This is kind of the matrix. It kind of summarized to show you in versus pictures in words. What is the actual roadway width? So existing is 44. Alternative 1 will just be removing the parking to fit everything in. We're going to have 4-foot wider on the east side. We have to widen on the east side to fit both parking lane. And the third one is separated raised bike, so it's going to be behind the curb. So it's just not going to have much impact on the road. And pretty much it kind of summarize everything below. So how the bike lane is going to be used adjacent to the driving lane. Are they buffered adjacent to curb or off the road in general and behind the terrace area? It's just a 6-foot sidewalk on each on the west side. Snow removal and sidewalk, as you see here, is by all the property owners. Snow removal for bike lanes is going to be done by city street plows because it's on road, but the one who are off the road will be done separately by the city equipments. So, and most importantly, to most of the people, there will be no impact to trees. So trees to remain as they are today. So when I mentioned in that one of the alternative where we're going to be removing parking on the west side, we did not just go in and say, oh, because we want to fit all those amenities. I'm sorry. Okay, I thought I heard someone talking. Okay, for alternative 1, we won't. Before removing the parking or deciding to removing it, we actually did a parking study to see what will be the impact of a removal of the parking on the roadway and the users. So as you see here, I'm not going to go through each number of them, but the impact was very low. It was done April 23rd, 24th, 25th as we go. And it was done of April of 2021. Not 2022, because the date wouldn't matter then. Anyway, so what you see from that chart that we have enough cars to support, I'm sorry, not cars, slots and spots to support the removal of the parking from the west side to the east side. So this is where we come in. I went a little bit too fast for this, but I want the majority of this meeting today will be focused on your feedback. how would the proposed design work for you? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Is there anything that you wanted me to go back and ask more questions about it? So does this proposed design is what we heard from you at the first public involvement meeting of last year? Do you have any information or comments regarding the historic preservation that we may not know about, or maybe additional feedback, or if you have questions in that regard? Also, which design alternative for the south segment would you prefer? Because the north, the middle, they don't really change. It's the south one that will have the three alternatives that we just discussed.
So Christine, this
Yes.
is Megan. I just want to kind of start this conversation since I see it come up in the chat. Some questions are popping up of doing the separate lanes or raised bike lanes throughout the whole segment. If you can get into those details.
Sorry, can you repeat that? What's exactly needed on the which segment?
Why isn't there a protected or buffered bike lane throughout the entire length of the project?
Okay. So the reason why we don't have that for the entire segment of the project, just on the south one, is because trees. If we start to impact those 15-foot terrace, there will be very high possibility to impacting those trees. So that's why we only selected to use it at a segment where we are avoiding the trees impact, which I heard from the very first public meeting that it was a very important feature to this segment. I can't see the chat box, so if you can tell me what's going on there.
Yeah, I was just trying to address some other questions. That this PowerPoint will be added to the project website, and I will email it out to all those who have signed up for updates. Historic preservation characteristics are important. Will you please have someone explain why and how these characteristics can coexist with appropriate solutions? From our guest named DM.
Okay, so this is the historic preservation. I'm going to tell you from the DOT perspective, what does that mean? And I will have the city's expert to add to that if she wishes to do so. So I went back to the slides. Those historic districts and sites are very important as part of the DOT environmental process. We have to assess changing the roadway features and characteristics will impact, potentially, impact the characteristic of these districts or sites. So we want to make sure to preserve it, and the preservation can reduce the value of that site, can eliminate some of the important historic features that are well appreciated and thought to be very important to those around this area. And it went through several processes for them to be listed as a historic preserved a building or site. So it's not like someone stated, oh, I want mine to be historic. It just doesn't work like that. So it's a process that needs to be considered in order for us to preserve our historic sites and district. So is Karen online? Can she add something?
Carla.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought her name is Karen. I apologize.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Hello?
we can. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, this is a very long stretch of one roadway, aside from some of the boulevards like Sherman Boulevard, for example, that has a historic designation of some way, shape, or form all the way from the beginning to the end of your project area. And streetscape appearance is very important in how the setting is for the buildings that populate the roadway. So expanding the roadway would not be something that would be acceptable. For example, relatively simple curbing, the way it is now, would be acceptable. One thing I brought up when Terrace Avenue, a portion of Terrace Avenue was repaved, to make sure the driveway approaches or aprons stay residential in character. I happen to live on Blue Mound Road in a section of the Story Hill neighborhood. And what they did was absolutely awful. If there were two curb cuts that were anywhere near each other for an apron for two different driveways, they just ran them all together as one. And it looks like a commercial driveway. We had ours cut back because we were figuring out what the heck is going on. And we actually had the crews come in and cut our apron down because we're very close to the neighbor next door. And it was like one run of concrete. And that would not be appropriate. For the different historic districts, they have slightly different names as they go from Edgewood down to Newberry Boulevard. So those are the kinds of things. And trees are an important aspect of this neighborhood as well. And the mature trees give a sense of a scale and setting, again, for the historic houses. If you imagine this as a subdivision brand newly created out in Brookfield or somewhere, and no trees to be seen, it would strike you differently. You wouldn't get the sense of time or place that the districts convey by their architecture. So architecture is one component of the district. But it sounds like if you keep, we'd have to look a bit at the where the bike lane is buffered in the one option to see exactly. And this is nicely done if you can put little flags or something out. I think visuals really work with the neighbors and for us staff as well here at the Historic Preservation Office. And part of what is on the east side of Lake Drive, North Lake Drive Estates, we want to preserve that character, that these are set way back. These mansions were set back so that they had this grand approach. And I know the footage may not seem like a lot, but it could impact how these different properties are viewed. So.
And just kind of to add one more thing to what Carla has been mentioning here. Village of Shorewood is from Edgewood going up north to Kensington. They have elected to avoid any trees impact. Therefore, we're going to have to maintain and stay within the footprint of the road from face to face of curb. So that kind of consistent what's happening in the city of Milwaukee going north to Shorewood and Whitefish Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. We do have a couple hands raised, so I will call on Jeff B. If you can unmute your microphone.
You bet. Hi, thanks.
Hi.
Megan, this is Jeff Bentoff. I live a block or maybe a block and a half south of the project area on Lake Drive. I want to thank everyone from the city for inviting us and having a lot of process where we get various briefings and chances to give input. And I think this presentation, you were answering my questions as you were going to new slides with all these, comparison slides where we put everything together. I look forward to looking at the slides later to study them. I just want to give my first initial response on the southern portion. I like option 3, and I like it for basically 2 reasons. I like the treatment of the bicyclists. I think it's going to be safer for them, and I think that's always an issue, mixing bicycles with cars. And I also think I like the fact that it's a slight narrowing of the street. Living south of Park, which is just a little south of the project area, we see cars coming south at pretty high speeds, partly because the visual cues of the wider street now suggest you can go faster. And when they get to Park and Lake and heading south, we see people hitting cars, driving into parked cars. It gets crazy. And I think narrowing it so you're getting a little closer to what the rest of the roadway is going to be heading down towards North Avenue would make sense. And I would oppose any kind of widening, which I think one of the options was. So those are my initial comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I see that Brian has his hand raised. You can unmute your microphone.
Hi, I'm Brian Manzella. I just wanted to thank you for doing this presentation. I'd also like to echo the design alternative 3 for the south section. Is a very nice setup. I did want to express concern about the north section, the lack of protected bike lanes that are in the door zone, coupled with the widening of the driving lanes. As a bicyclist, is very concerning to me. And I'd like to see, whether it's elimination of one side of parking or something to, make a better bicycle lane on this section would be much appreciative. Thanks.
Thank you. And I did see in the chat from Jake Newborn mentioning if you can go to the slide for parking. And
Hold on.
that should address another question that came through about a parking study. Was this conducted for the northern scope?
It was conducted from Newbury to Locust. You have that east side and the west side. The limits were from Newbury to Kenwood.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the question, which limits it was done? That was a question, Megan, or there's something else?
Yeah, so if a parking study was conducted, in the northern half, so it was.
Yes. Yes. Because this is where it was recommended to remove it, correct?
Correct. And then can you go back to the project timeline slide as well? Carrie, did you have any specific questions regarding the project timeline?
Hi, this is Carrie Koenig, Director of Environment and Facilities for Bartolotto Hospitality Group. So I'm just here representing them. This is my first meeting that I'm attending. I was not with the company the last July that you had them. So this is really my first look at what the project all entails. And just wondering how this would impact our business from a traffic standpoint. Not just along Lake Drive, but I don't know if this is the same project that also is encompassing the work that's going on for the bridge on Ravine Road. If that's something you can answer.
So those are two separate projects.
Okay.
As the project liaison, I would work with Bartolotto's in making sure that you guys have signage directing people of how to access your restaurant. And we do maintain access to businesses during construction projects. So we will work with you as we get near construction on that coordination and what that looks like, so you can share with your customers and guests those details.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other hands raised or any questions, comment in the chat box?
Yeah, so from Michael in our chat, is it feasible to shift the curb line by 1 or 2 feet without damaging existing trees? By doing so, you can include a protected bike lane the entire length and save the trees.
We actually looked into that. Let me just go to the slide. You're talking about the north segment, correct? So unfortunately, we looked into that. The trees, as you see them today, they have deep roots. So anytime you kind of disturb that area, you are putting it at a higher risk of the roots being impacted, and therefore those mature trees will no longer exist. So it's a higher risk, and actually we kind of made sure to have enough widths that complied with state and federal guidelines. So the shared parking and bike lanes on the road are in very safer and more user-friendly, I should say. So we have incorporated separated bike lane where we actually can. Otherwise, the impact will not be good. And finally, like others have stated, we really don't want to widen the road if we don't have to, because we want to also address the reckless driving going on in that segment. So there is a couple of reasons why we have avoided that. I don't know if Sam, do you want to add anything else I may have missed from your design perspective?
Yeah, one thing you said is pretty accurate information is that the moment the curb is removed and we move it into the terrace area, the root system of these mature trees grow all the way to the back of the curb. And then it is a typical practice by City of Milwaukee and forestry section that when we put the new curb, we cannot even put it back where it is now. For the setting of the forms, it has to be moved out into the road by 3 inches. This is again a good example would be North Humboldt Avenue project. The curb is removed, and then we cannot put it back where it is today, not to impact the root system. So we have to move it into the roadway by 3 inches. So even without widening, the fact that we remove, then to put a new one back, we have to go into the road to preserve all the trees. So because of that reason, then widening concept altogether was scrapped for that portion.
Correct. I agree. Thank you.
From Jeff B, if we eliminate a lane of parking in the northern section, could we add raised biking lanes without harming the trees?
Well, this is something that unfortunately we only eliminated parking where we can based on that study. So I understand where people's frustration are at, and they just want a separated, safer bike lane, which I'm 100% in agreement with. However, like we said, we just have to balance all users' usage of that roadway. So parking on this segment from Hampshire to Edgewood Avenue is highly used. Therefore, it's residential, as you see from the exhibit. So we want to be able to provide to the pedestrian and the surrounding neighborhood the parking for their usage. Other areas where we have conducted the parking study that show that we can eliminate it, we have done so. So, and again, I just want to emphasize the width that you see in front of you on the screen. I'm going to hover over them. You may not really feel it in the road, but these are standard approved guidelines for bike lane widths and parking lane widths, and also travel lane. So everybody will have enough space for them to ride safely on that corridor. So we kind of mitigated between all methods here.
A couple comments and questions in the chat box, but Ted has had his hand raised, so I'm going to jump to him first, and then we can go back to the conversation in the chat box.
My name's Ted Tausman. I live over on Stoll Avenue and Newberry. I'm not sure if this is the right place to bring this up, and if not, if it should be later, I'm happy waiting. I'm calling about a safety issue down at Hartford and Lake Drive, where the Torah Study Institute and the Hefner UWM building are. Is this the right time to talk about people being able to cross the street and signage and so forth, or is that better done?
No, definitely now is the time to talk about that. Thanks, Ted.
Oh, okay, good. Well, here's the thing. I'm a volunteer with Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, and we habitate that structure, the Hefner building. And across the street, there's the Torah Institute. Each day we have maybe 100 people who might cross that street, Lake Drive. And we've been talking and talking for 5 years. Nick has worked with us, the alderman, and we've come up with some ideas, but we're really afraid something awful is going to happen one day. Our people are all 50 or over. We have numerous people who have wheelchairs and walkers. I'm one of them. And it's awful trying to cross over there. And we have been trying to get we have a couple of signs, stop here, yellow signs. We've been trying to get flashers over there for the last 5 years. We were told that we're going to go in a stepwise fashion, and maybe someday down the road, so far they've gone down to 2 lanes. Now they're talking about putting the white sticks in so people can't pass on the right. I just think it's a situation that needs to be dealt with. I mean, a couple of years ago, a woman got killed over on Brady Street in a similar situation, and I think they put flashers up at that time. We note that in Shorewood, on Oakland Avenue, they have a lot of flashers down by the Metro Mart. They work very well. They're not that expensive. We just want to know what we can do to prevent an imminent disaster, in our opinion. So I'm asking you if you can maybe consider doing something about this in your planning, or maybe you have considered doing something about it in your planning. If you have any questions for me.
Yes, I do actually. Can you repeat again, where is your building located?
It's the Hefner Mansion on Hartford and Lake Drive. Great big, huge, we have our classes there. Of course, we haven't had as many people there in the last 2 years, but we're starting to ramp up again. We have about 1,500 members, people my age who want to continue their learning experience. And so we have all kinds of classes. We have 3 classes a day, and it can be up to 60 people coming in and out. And then across the street, we have the Torah Academy, and they have, 60 or 100 students. And they've had a couple of close calls with students who almost got hit. Nobody slows down for the signs there. It just doesn't work. In fact, one is missing, has been missing for a while. The yellow signs that say, say something. So we're just very concerned, and we've brought this up before, and we would like to see some action on this, because the elderly in our community deserve to be safe when they're crossing those streets.
Of course, I agree with.
There is no else to park. It's the UWM campus, so they park on that street. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Safety should be a main goal for everyone. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, if you can do me a favor, please, if you can type your email address in the chat box, so we can follow up with you.
Sure.
And if we have any questions, so we can address your concerns.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You.
Do I send that to now? Should I send?
Put it in the chat.
Yeah, I will, but I need to send it to somebody in the chat. Who do I send it to?
Okay.
I would say my contact information was shown before. Again, my name is Samuel Medhin. I'm the project manager for this project. So I will be the contact person between the city and DOT. So if you fill out one of those comment forms and drop them in the chat box, or tomorrow we have an in-person meeting. If you, I don't know whether you're going to show up on that one, we can have one-on-one discussion, so we can follow up on to your request.
I just send you my name, and I'll make a brief comment. It's about the lighting over, crossing lighting over at Hartford. You'll get back to me. And your name is it Redin, R-E-D-I-N?
Samuel, last name Medhin, M-E-D-H-I-N.
Okay,
So
Also indicated on the invitation letter there, so you can get that contact information there too. So
okay, thank you.
sure.
I will be sharing the contact information for everyone at the end, but also I have added my email address in the chat box. So the city and DOT communicate together all the time. So feel free to send it to anyone.
I see that Rod DePue, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, hand is raised. And I know he's brought up this intersection in the past, and I do have his email.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I just want to piggyback onto Ted's comments. We don't want to wait. How many years away are you? 24, 25, you're planning on doing this road work, I believe, right?
Correct.
What year?
2024.
2024, excuse me, yeah. Is there any reason, my question is there any reason that the tourist center that has students in the 9th through 12th grade and UWM Osher senior citizens have to wait until 2024 to get flashing lights up there, pedestrian crossing lights that TAPCO will put up any day the city's willing to put a little money out to do it. Is there any reason we have to wait until 2024? Could it be done tomorrow, or as soon as Alderman Kovac gets the go-ahead?
I believe this is something the city has to address. It's nothing within the DOT jurisdiction to add today.
I see Alderman Kovac is on this, it's not a Zoom, but on this Microsoft thing. So I'm sure we'll hear from him tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't know if I know Scott is here from DPW, but Mike Amson with Multimodal. I believe this project is scheduled for this season, but you know, a temporary installation there. I don't know if it'll be a flashing light, but temporary bump outs. But let me, I actually don't have the exact timing on that, so let me see if I can get more details, unless Scott has them.
It's been temporary installations for the last 4 years. We would like to move ahead to flashing lights.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Reinbacher here. I'm a traffic engineer with the City of Milwaukee Department of Public Works. So to date, as I think was previously noted, we've been kind of taking an incremental approach out here with some of these treatments, particularly at the intersection of Hartford and Lake Drive. Of course, many folks are familiar with the recent restriping project out here, where we reconfigured the traffic lanes. We did install high visibility crosswalks out here as well. Right now, I guess I'm not aware exact plans if there are any right now for immediate implementation of whether it's flashing lights or signage at this particular crosswalk, or perhaps I think many of you have seen the paint and post type, we're calling them rapid implementation projects throughout the city, where we are installing essentially paint and post bump outs to minimize the crossing distance that folks need to cross Lake Drive. We're certainly looking at enhanced improvements, particularly at the intersection of Hartford with this project. I guess to date, I think really we're still trying to narrow down the roadway cross section in general. But those are some of the things that we're currently looking at right now. So I don't know if that answers your questions.
We have been looking at those. They're not up yet, though.
Sure, yeah. I will say that, of course, this is one of the most common requests that we get citywide, is for some sort of flashing signage out there. Again, we're certainly considering that with this project. I just don't know that that any kind of a decision, of course, has been made yet. So it is something that we could implement quickly if need be. But again, I think we're still trying to look into other improvement options for the entire project.
we'd appreciate it if you could look ahead and start implementing some of your ideas then. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
I see that Helen's hand is raised. If you can unmute your microphone.
Hi, I have a question about noise issue. I see you replacing with concrete, asphalt with concrete, and I don't think it's appropriate at all on this street. Can you tell me why you're doing this? And is there any examples of concrete in this area at all?
So are you, okay. This is Christine Hanna from the DOT. Yes, replacing the road with concrete versus asphalt, it actually, because it's a low speed roadway, is 30 miles per hour or less, the friction between the tires and the concrete is actually minimal to negligent. Now, number two is, of course, we know the winter in Wisconsin and the plows and everything. So when we are trying to extend the life of that pavement, because we're not going to come back here to 30 plus years to touch that segment of the road anytime soon. So we're trying with our design to make it last with very little maintenance time and money. So concrete is very expensive by itself, not just asphalt. So we want to make sure that this roadway is sustained, and there is not really, it's not a truck route, just delivery trucks. So it's going to last with this type of volume of cars. If the concern would be the noise, actually, because it's a low speed, so this is not going to happen. People sometimes compare this with the freeway. It's hard to compare between 30 miles per hour and 55 to 70 miles per hour. So this is something that I doubt is going to happen in this segment.
If I may add here one thing, is it the same Helen that I replied in an email the other day?
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Yeah, we pretty much tried to explain the city's approach with this situation as well. The roadway, the Lake Drive roadway has been concrete for a long time until the concrete has been deteriorated to a point where some sort of maintenance were required. And at the time, we overlaid with asphalt. And then the combined life for the entire project exceeds over 40 years. And if it were not for the concrete, we wouldn't have come anywhere close to that long of a payment service life. Throughout the entire city, it's a typical process that when we remove the existing pavement, it gets resurfaced or replaced with concrete. And then at some point when the concrete gets to a body shape and maintenance becomes a regular problem, then we overlay it and extend the life by additional 15, 20 years. So this is the kind of cycle that we go through. So some of that has been explained in the email response that I sent to you the other day too. So.
Yes, and thank you for doing that. Shorewood and Whitefish Bay and even Fox Point, they all put asphalt. So how does it even look like? We'll have this little stretch and concrete, and then the rest will be asphalt. How you see that?
If I remember correctly, that portion in Shorewood and the northern communities on the same route, the base is still concrete. They milled the old asphalt and put a new asphalt layer. And then the next step would be then they will come to the same process that we're trying to do now, remove the entire pavement and start from scratch. So what you've saw, that project was done in the last couple of years with asphalt overlaying, but the base underneath was a one-time concrete pavement. So it will there comes a time that they will do the same thing with concrete pavement, is my understanding. So.
Oh, Sam, just to kind of add to what you just said, I actually have the project with Village of Shorewood. It's from Edgewood to Kensington Boulevard, and we're doing exactly what we're doing here with the school being pavement replacement. So it will be replaced with concrete. We don't have any current project with Whitefish Bay, so this is the segment that so far we don't have any future plan for. But as it stands today, those two projects will be continuously pavement-wise the same.
So you really think it will not add to the noise issues on Lake Drive, concrete?
We don't believe so, no.
And also on a different issue, I don't know if it's the right forum for that. Summer, we are just suffering from these bikers driving in groups, tens and even hundreds at once. They're going probably to Lincoln Memorial or Macwan, Harley Davidson. Anything could be done about it? We have an alderman here. Maybe you can answer the question.
You're talking about loud motorcycles?
About motorcycles, yes.
Yeah, I mean, we and they're are they obeying traffic laws? They're just loud.
They intentionally, make it loud noises. The groups of hundreds sometimes in summer, during the holidays. It's actually sometimes scary even. We live right here, and it's unbelievable noise going on and on and on in the summer.
Well, that is something I can talk to both the sheriff's office at the county and the city police about, because there is often when there's traffic, in that area, there's often heavy enforcement there just to deal with the traffic. So I will raise this with both of them, both of the police and the sheriff, and see what suggestions they have.
Yes, and also people talk about crossing, Lake Park crossing. I think it's Linwood and Lake Drive. People going to the park on the east side, and the cars wouldn't stop at all. Nobody stops, and there's no enforcement. People with the kids and pets, we all go into the park, and nobody stops.
That we are definitely hoping that we're going to do some pretty significant changes. I hope. I know there's been some support for the more drastic alternatives in that stretch that includes Linwood, which should aid with the crossings there. And I do share the frustrations that a number of neighbors have raised about not able to get as significant a change north of Kenwood, especially across from Witts and the Hefter Center. So. But like I said, we're exploring other options with pump outs there to increase the goal of this project. The goal of this mayor is to get pedestrian safety improved, which includes the ability to cross the street to get to the park. So that thanks for that note. We'll try to make sure that this that those pedestrian crossings are part of the improvements here.
Okay, so please relay this to wherever you think it's appropriate about bikers, motorcycles, and crossing Lake Park crossing, please.
Great, thank you. I see that Sabine has her hand raised. If you can unmute your microphone.
Here I am. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the intersection of Kenwood, Lake Drive, and Lincoln Memorial Drive. The traffic lights there do not function very well. Pedestrians have all of 17 seconds to cross the street after they punch the button and the sign says walk. And lo and behold, the traffic coming up from Lincoln Memorial Drive gets a green arrow and they cut you off before you've even had time to cross the street. I've been working with Nick Kovac's office on that matter, and I'm not sure if the traffic configurations and the lights are part of this project. And there's another big problem on that intersection is the people coming from Kenwood making a left turn, an illegal left turn onto Lake Drive. There's a sign, I believe there's two signs, but every time I try to cross, there's usually somebody who doesn't see the sign or chooses to ignore it. And believe me, I've almost been killed a couple of times at that intersection. Now, I've been to other, Silver Spring and Port Washington is a massive intersection, but everybody gets a turn. All the right-hand people get a turn, all the left turn people get a turn. It takes time, but everybody gets a chance to make the turns that they want. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but perhaps a left turn from Kenwood to Lake Drive should be permitted, but only in a certain time frame. So I've kind of gathered a lot of thoughts into one sentence here or one paragraph, but that the traffic configurations and the lighting and the directions at that intersection really need a lot of work. And I'm not sure if it's part of this project or if it's a city question. So if you could answer that, that would be very helpful.
Great. I think you brought it to the right team meeting here. This probably Scott Kleinbacher, do you care to address this?
Sure. Well, that is going to be one of the big improvements with this project. Of course, the signal, that all of the traffic signal infrastructure at this intersection are going to be upgraded. One of the biggest changes that folks will notice is we did a traffic analysis for this project. Currently Lincoln Memorial Drive, as you are all likely familiar with, has 2 right turn lanes, kind of in the northwestbound direction, where right now there's 2 lanes that make the right turn onto northbound Lake Drive. In coordination with this project, our team in DPW and also the Wisconsin DOT, we've prepared our traffic study. And as part of this project, although there might be some delays during peak hours of the day, right now we're recommending to reduce this down to only 1 right turn lane. We're also going to be currently, I think, as you noted, Sabrine, there is a right turn. It's essentially a green arrow out there. You can make a right turn on both a green arrow and a circular green. We're going to be changing the signal timing out here to minimize the conflicts between vehicles making that right turn and pedestrians using the north crosswalk. So that's going to be one big thing that we are going to be changing with this project. Of course, we have heard a lot of concerns over the years right now with the turning conflicts out here. So we will be addressing that with this project. Also, similarly, we've heard a lot of requests about making that eastbound left turn from eastbound Kenwood onto northbound Lake Drive. As part of this project, we are also going to be allowing that movement. So we are going to be changing the signal timing out there to provide likely a green left turn arrow to make this movement. So we will be removing that left turn restriction to allow it. Similarly, we are also going to be installing a dedicated left turn lane to provide safe refuge for motorists to make that left turn. So yes, ultimately, we will be making a lot of changes to the signal infrastructure at this intersection that I think nearly everyone is going to be pretty excited about. Ultimately, we feel that this is going to result in a much safer intersection. Yeah, there are trade-offs. There might be some additional delays during peak hours of the day, but we feel it's best for the intersection overall. So hopefully that may answer your questions.
Thank you for listening to us. It's been a long haul. We've been working on this for 5-6 years. And I'm delighted that you did the study, and then I'm delighted that there will be changes in the future. It really was necessary, and it'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Just to go back to some of the conversations in the chat, will there be any traffic calming devices like delineators in the parking lane that buffers for the bike lane to try to prevent it from being used as a passing lane?
So kind of it was brought up by the alderman, I believe others. we are looking at some sort of traffic calming on avoiding those bypass lanes for curb bump outs. And it's also not just for the reducing reckless driving, but also bringing the pedestrian closer to reduce the crossing limits. However, that being said, DOT is still evaluating those curb bump outs because kind of a new concept to us. So we're not saying we're not going to, we just have to still do some sort of analysis to ensure that the feds and the state are in agreement how we're gonna move forward with it. So to kind of re-answer your question again, yes, we're not gonna put those tubular markers that it was referenced to. We're just gonna potentially add those bump outs to avoid that type of movement. Does this answer the question or?
Well, it may raise more questions, but I think for the time, yes. Another question in the chat from Michael is, why does parking get priority over a safer bike facility?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yes, sorry. Why does parking get priority over a safer bike facility?
Where did that, can you just point me to which one are we talking about? Which segment, Doris?
It's from Michael in the chat box, and it's asking, why does parking get priority over a safer bike facility?
Actually,
I think it's likely in reference to the area, north of Kenwood, where you said the parking study wouldn't justify the elimination of a park lane.
Thank you, Alderman.
This is the segment we're talking about, correct? The south segment?
No, I assume the question is about north of Kenwood, because earlier I think someone had asked why not do a similar treatment there, and you said the parking study allowed it south of Kenwood, but not north of Hampshire.
Well, we cannot just go ahead and eliminate parking and disregard the use of the parking for not just like the locals, but any other commuter out there. In the same time, we are providing a safe bike lane. It has a buffer between the driving lane and the parking lane with 3 feet on each side. So typically, and it's just pavement marking. So typically they have about 8 feet throughout that segment to travel safely. So whether it's off-road or parking has nothing to do with this equation here. Actually, by removing one parking from one side, we're giving the bikers more space to use. If you can see my screen and see how it's been divided, it just provides more, almost like at the width of a driving lane, just 2 feet difference.
Again, I think the question is north of Hampshire.
Yeah.
Not this section.
I'm trying to look for it. Hold on. Sam, do you know which one they're talking about?
Yeah, they're talking about the section between Edgewood and Kenwood, and then, for example, the short segment Hampshire to Edgewood, the bike lane existing today is 4 feet wide, and then it's going to be widened to 6 foot. That is a big improvement. And then we come up with the additional room to reallocate that to the bike lane, because we eliminate one northbound lane entirely within that stretch. So again, before the striping, there was no marked bike lane in the entire stretch. So it is a big improvement in class compared to what has been out there a couple of years, and now we continue to improve all these bicycle facilities whenever it is doable. So.
Correct, Sam. And like I stated originally, Alderman, at the beginning of that presentation, DOT goals and is to balance all the for all the users using this road out there safely and efficiently. So we understand the parking may not be priorities to others. However, if we cannot provide adequate bike lanes, width-wise acceptable and safer, then parking will be eliminated. But at this situation, like you see and Sam just mentioned, we were able to do so.
Well, maybe if you just could provide us with the details of the parking study to the public, if you're able to do it before tomorrow's meeting or whenever you're able to get the details of the parking study out, that could be helpful for, well, I have the same question, so.
Sam, do you want to share this details now, or do we want to wait till we go to the meeting tomorrow and explain to all? Just note that, guys, this meeting is being recorded, so you can go back to it and listen at your own leisure later.
Yeah, this parking study was done for the segment south of Kenwood because it was a consideration to remove parking on one side. The roadway, the existing roadway south of Kenwood is 44-foot wide as it stands today, whereas it is 46 on the other side. So there was a lot of reason indicating that we take a closer look at the southern segment closely. And then this parking study was called for to see if there is a possibility that we can remove parking on one side of the road. But north of Kenwood, the situation is different. There was no similar parking analysis done for that area because right from the beginning, limited parking on that side was not a consideration. So.
Alderman, did this answer your question? And if you want, I can summarize it very quickly. So the study methodology took place from Friday, April 23rd, all the way up to Thursday, April 29th. And it was divided in three timelines, from 7 to 11 a.m., from 11 to 5 p.m., and from 5 to 10 p.m. And the segments were divided, as you see here, I'm like kind of hovering with my cursor here. So from 7 to 8 a.m. on a Friday, there were 0 parked cars on the east side. From 11 to 5 p.m., there were only 4, and they were from Locust to Linwood Avenue. However, the majority of that usage happened between 5 to 10 p.m. on a Friday night, so you have a total of 76 cars on that segment at this time of the day. So pretty much where you see those higher numbers, it would indicate what time and where do they fall. So the majority are zeros, which is actually what we wanted to see in order for us to justify eliminating parking on one side. So this is what the study had shown us in kind of a very fast snapshot.
I mean, I want to leave time for other questions, but do you have the same study for north of Kenwood?
No, we don't. I don't believe so, no.
Well, perhaps, I mean, maybe if there's time, we should do that before the project's finalized. That would be my request. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. We'll do so.
Okay, yep, we do have a couple hands raised. So Alyssa, if you can go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hello, I just wanted to go back to that northern segment. I was wondering if maybe I missed it, if there's an alternative that puts the bike lanes inside of the parking where it would go car, parking, bike. And so I didn't see that on the northern section. So I was curious if that's not being considered, why it's not being considered. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, you went a little bit too fast for me. Can you repeat this again? Why'd you?
Sure. No problem. So in this northern section, I didn't notice, and maybe I missed it, so my apologies. The bike is in between the parking section and the actual driving lane. Is there an opportunity to consider putting the bike lane closer to the sidewalk on the inside of the parking lane? And if not, I was just curious why that's not being considered.
Okay, that's actually a very good question. The reason why they are located between the traveling cars and the parked cars is for the biker safety. Because if we put the bikers outside between the curb and the parking cars, they can be very easily missed. So they kind of get protected from cars going in and out of this lane to park. So the bike has to maneuver, I should say, around the parking cars. But driving lanes are moving vehicles. They're not really, and they are staying within their lane. That's why there are actually widths. There is minimum width and desirable width for those lanes. So those are studies were made to ensure that the minimum is a safer lane for either parking lane, bike lane, driving lane, left turn lanes, whatever that usage may be. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not, but the bike between the driving lane and parking lane, believe it or not, it's safer for the bikers, so they don't have to kind of maneuver between parked cars or driving lanes or right turn lanes or left turn lanes. And from visibility wise, they are easily seen by the cars going into park or the traveling driving lanes. So
Thank you. That does answer my question.
thank you.
I have Sandra McSweeney next. If you can unmute your microphone. Okay, we might be having some issues, so I will jump to Jake Newborn first and then back to Sandra after.
Hi, good evening, folks. Thank you. I've been following along in a lot of the chat comments as well, and part of my question, I guess, was answered already by the alderman, and I think requesting a parking study of the northern section is extremely warranted. You know, I look at that parking study again, and it seems like a lot of zeros and ones, and then obviously two, you know, that Friday section, and was there that there was a big jump in, right? So for a very, very short period of an entire week, you know, half of the roadway is being accommodated for that. So is there any qualitative data that you guys have, like what's causing those huge jumps there? Was it an special event or something?
No, those were done through standard weekdays and weekends. We avoided actually to do it during holidays or any sort of celebration to avoid that high volume peak. And that's why also they were divided in three timeline segments from 7 to 11 a.m., 11 to 5, and afterwards.
Right, I understand what the graph says, but what we see a huge jump in between only Friday between 5 and 10, and then it's half that on a Sunday 11 to 5. So, but none of the other weekdays have that a big jump that Friday has in the evening. So I'm asking, like, did Alderman Kovac throw a fundraiser party or something that night? But there's something there that was going on, and so I'm just asking about that.
I understand what you're saying. From what I can decipher from the report and the spreadsheet that you see in front of you, it's the weekend pretty much. So this is where the majority of the parked cars came out from, especially a Friday night from 5 to 10. Plenty of cars will come there. Sunday nights, pretty much from 11 to 5, is going to jump. So that's why you see Monday through Thursday is almost negligible.
Okay, thank you. My last point, and I'd like to respond to the gentleman, the older gentleman who had said there were lots of concerns there. And I typed this in the chat, but I think people should maybe hear it. Wisconsin rates, I don't have the exact stats on me, I apologize, I should grab them, but Wisconsin rates of people age 65 and older, pedestrians being hit by cars and seriously injured or killed is so high that it's triggered the federal highways to require Wisconsin to spend more money and adjust our strategic highway safety plan to make sure that you're decreasing those numbers and meeting goals in reduction of that. And so you also have an increase in dollars coming from the BIL and can be put towards these types of improvements that the feds are telling us we have to get better on. And this should be a prime opportunity to utilize those dollars and take advantage of those policy changes and requirements and actually make an impact. And hopefully, that can be properly done here. So that's it for me. Thank you, Megan, for running this. Alderman Kovac, congratulations on your better job. You won't have to listen to us as much anymore. So thank you all.
Thank you for the very nice comments, and we are in agreement with you 100%. Pedestrian crossing regarding older age or younger, especially for school kids crossing during the weekends. This is a main priority for us with this project to improve. So rest assured that being looked at and considered.
Rod, would you like to unmute your microphone?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that gentleman's comments, whoever that was that checked that out about there's additional money for senior citizens for crossings. I wanted to comment on the slide that's up now, Lake Drive Parking Study South Segment. I'm not sure exactly where Hartford comes in there, but I would point out that this was done in April of 21 last year, April 2021, and that was right in the middle of COVID, I believe. And I know UWM Osher had no classes at Hefner Center. They were all online. So if you're looking at that as far as parking at the corner or on Lake Drive at Hartford, this wouldn't really count because there was nothing going on at the Hefner Center, UWM Hefner Center at that time. And I don't know how much was going on across the street where the students, 9th to 12th grade students are. But just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you for this comment, and that actually makes sense. Since we are going to consider running or conducting the parking study for the northern segment, we'll take a look at this again and ensure that the values that you see in front of you are accurate outside the pandemic timeline. So we will double check this and we'll share it with you guys.
Great, thank you.
Sandra, do you? Oh, we could.
Now?
Yep, now we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I've lived on Lake Drive and Edgewood since 1974, so I've watched every change that's come about, both good and bad. The best was when we followed suit with coming from Brown Deer Road all the way down to Kenwood with a single lane and bikers allowed to have room to bike. What I found was the most disastrous was when you come to Hampshire and you split off and allow people to go to 2 lanes. When they will then exit onto Lincoln Memorial, it becomes an absolute racetrack. And then they go the 3rd lane into the straight onto the South Lake Drive and or change it turning west onto Kenwood. Bikers are absolutely forced to detour. Living here, we see just hundreds, thousands of bicycle people, both going to work and for recreational purposes. But I do not understand why we are allowing this racetrack then to go down to Lincoln Memorial when in fact you could continue 2 lanes and one going straight like they always did and one turning left onto Lincoln Memorial, and then let them bust loose if that's what they want to do, or maybe they continue as a single lane. And one thing I wanted to address with Scott Reinbacher, I 100% agree with him to eliminate that little section where you're coming west, Lincoln Memorial, turning right onto Lake Drive going north, when we allow people to go into that little bitty turn lane. And at that intersection, the cars almost crash into each other because they're trying to make a right angle turn, which they can't, when in fact it's a curve. And then all of a sudden they realize the lane has ended, 500 feet north or something like that. So then they once again crash into each other. So I travel these corners several times every single day, back and forth to work, back and forth downtown. And I think that intersection is a huge, huge mess. And I would like to see single lanes, one turning left onto Lincoln Memorial, with the second one being left onto Lincoln Memorial and or going straight, with the third lane being the bike lane, just as it is coming north all the way down and then continuing south on Lake Drive. Thank you.
These are very good comment. Thank you.
And I'll just, obviously I can't speak for the state here, but this is an issue that Sandy raised at the initial meeting a couple years ago. It's an issue I agree with, and I just got another email from Sandy with some very great hand-drawn charts, which I forwarded on to our team, and we can forward on to the state too. I don't know, Scott, if you want to comment, because you did talk earlier about the signalized intersection. I have been pushing in internal meetings to reduce the number of turn lanes potentially, from turning, forcing them, or not, maybe not forcing, but allowing the movement, from Lake to Kenwood, from Lake to Lincoln Memorial. But I know that our engineers have looked closely at the traffic counts. I don't know if you want to comment, Scott, on why you don't want it, why you stopped where you did on the change, on the proposed changes. I mean, obviously there's still room to make more changes at that intersection, especially on at Kenwood.
Sure. So I guess our team, when we looked at the intersection of Kenwood, Lincoln Memorial, and Lake in particular, according to the traffic volume data that we have, and I guess the existing intersection footprint, of course, we're all working within certain amounts of right of way, and of course, there's impacts to trees, adjacent property owners, etc. I guess from a traffic standpoint, we felt that 2 southbound left turn lanes going from southbound Lake Drive onto Lincoln Memorial, I guess we felt that that was the best lane configuration from a safety and operational standpoint. I do recognize that, of course, Lincoln Memorial Drive, it's a 4-lane road with 2 southbound lanes. I guess we didn't feel that the lane configurations at this particular intersection would have a big impact on the speeds of drivers. Eventually, drivers going south on Lincoln Memorial Drive, they will. It's a long stretch with not a lot of intersections, things like that. I guess drivers will, of course, kind of adjust their speeds as they continue to head south or north. We didn't feel that the lane configurations at this intersection would have an effect on that, so that's why we're recommending the 2 southbound lanes. I will also say that Lincoln Memorial Drive is actually, it's owned and operated by the Milwaukee County Parks. So I guess whatever decisions that are recommended from both, the city, the community, everyone, that's actually going to have to get funneled to Milwaukee County Parks. We haven't approached them yet about the northbound approach on Lincoln Memorial. But the signals are operated, of course, by the city. So I don't know if that answered your questions, but I guess from a traffic operational standpoint, we felt that the 2 southbound left turn lanes would be the best at this intersection.
Well, Scott, I understand what you're saying, but I don't understand why you can't just let them make those decisions once they get onto Lincoln Memorial. There's a huge intersection at Capitol. There's a big intersection up at Lake Drive in Silver Spring, all this traffic continues in a single lane. But we get down to this spot where we say, okay, this is enough, just go for it. If you could at least let them make the turn in as it used to be, where the center goes left, the middle goes straight or left, and the right goes biker or or a right turn, however it would be. But, you know, Lincoln Memorial, this was an issue when Penny Podell was reconstructing Lincoln Memorial, and Penny was not into bikers, and she said bike riders can take other routes. They don't need to go down Lincoln Memorial, and that is some of which why we have it as it is, and why it's a traffic congestion and a racetrack. And I mean, you see tickets given all the time. But if you could reconsider, please, that intersection where bicycle riders get killed unless you widen those lanes, which I see not to be necessary, it would really be helpful to the entire neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely, Sandy. The alderman actually did pass along your email to me. I didn't get a chance to look at it and put a lot of thought into it yet, but we'll certainly take a look at your suggestions and we'll follow up with you.
Thank you.
Yep. So
Thank
we are
you.
looking into this approach. So
thank you. Bikers are becoming more and more, more and more every day. Thank goodness.
Thank you.
Okay, Megan, do you have anyone else?
You're muted, Megan.
Brian from Milwaukee Waterworks has his hand raised.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Rothgary. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Milwaukee Waterworks. And first, just wanted to thank staff and everyone for presenting, and all the residents for participating and sharing your feedback. I just wanted to let folks know that as part of the Waterworks program to replace lead service lines throughout the city, we've expanded that program recently to replace lead service lines during major road reconstruction projects such as this one. So the service line is the pipe that brings drinking water from the water main in the street to your home. So along with this project, we will be replacing all the lead service lines that currently exist. If your property has already had its service line replaced with copper, we obviously wouldn't need to address that. But for folks that still have lead service lines, that will be taking place prior to the road reconstruction. Currently, there is a cost share for replacing lead service lines. There's the way to think of it is the lead service line, or the service line in general, is sort of divided in half from the water main to the curb. That's the public's, that's the utility owns that. And the utility pays for 100% of that cost. From the curb to your home is considered the property owner's property. That's yours, but in order to help defray costs, the city will pay 2/3 of that. Now that cost gets adjusted every year. The ordinance currently sets it at 1/3 of the cost of the private side. So total cost is about $10,000. So it's about $5,000 for each half. And that means the property owner's responsibility is 1/3 of that, which is about $1,720. Now this, project won't take place. Lead service line replacements won't take place till 2023 at the earliest. So that cost share could, it certainly will change. I shouldn't say could, but will change. And as a benefit of the federal infrastructure bill that just passed in November, we're optimistic that we can get that cost share down even lower than where it stands currently. But I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. If you have questions, you can certainly contact us at the, you can ask me now, you can contact us at the Waterworks, and we have some more information about this on our website, which is milwaukee.gov/water.
Thanks, Brian. I know that was a lot of information to take in. So as the project liaison, I'll work with Milwaukee Waterworks, and we'll make sure that information is shared with the property owners.
Thank you, Megan.
Leading up to construction. Yep. I don't see any hand raised, but just trying to catch up on some of the chat conversations going on. Jeff Bentoff said parking on the weekend night, Saturday, is negligible. The two bumps in parked cars clearly don't seem to be a trend worth building a model on. So again, just to go back, I think WisDOT and the city of Milwaukee has confirmed that they'll relook at a new parking study, especially the northern half. So we'll look into that. Gloria Parker, you can unmute your microphone.
Yes, I wonder if you could just explain what the raised bike lane would be like on the south portion of this project, and how far south would that be? Because if it's just a short distance, I don't see why it should be done.
So if you can see my screen, this segment goes from Newberry Boulevard to Kenwood Boulevard. So it's not that short of a segment, so it's pretty lengthy. And if you see here, it's outside, it's between the parking lane and the terrace area. So it's pretty much just because we have like a narrow driving and parking lane, we wanted to push them somewhere we can add this buffered lane without tree impaction. So again, like I answered others, sometimes we can do it based on what we're impacting, and sometimes we can't. So here we were able to fit it in between the trees, the mature trees, and the light pole terrace area. We would have loved to have them all outside of the traveling lanes, but we can't just because of the trees' impact and other utilities, of course, but negligible. Does this answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Gloria, you raised your hand again. Do you have a follow-up question?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay.
It's hard to work those hands, Megan. Just up and down. I know sometimes I forget them up all meeting, so. So until we wait for someone else, I just want to make sure that you guys know we will have an in-person meeting tomorrow. It's going to be at the University of Wisconsin, Helen Z Center. The address is on the screen, room 171. We're going to be there from 6:30 to 8:30. And we're going to have a printout of all of those exhibits. So if you wanted to see something in person and point to it, please feel free to stop over, and we'll be there to explain all your the exhibits, answer your questions, or address any comments. So we encourage you to attend if you can.
Just to continue the conversation, for cyclists riding north from Kenwood, it looks like it's a very short distance from Newberry to Kenwood for a bike rider. How do you see cyclists going from a lane to the right of parked cars and switching to a lane to the left of parked cars when they get to Kenwood? So if you can kind of talk about that transition we have between the two segments.
So that is a very good question. Actually, we looked into that, and we are going to mitigate that so the cyclists and the park cars have like a transition area, so it will be visible for both entities to cross each other in a safer manner. It seemed like it's a shorter distance, but again, we have to work with what we're impacting, negative or positive, and what's not. So it's just kind of a balancing act. So there will be transitions between one segment, between the middle segment to the south segment and the north segment to the middle. So it's not just like a slash cut. There will be transition areas. And we'll have those full details of those transition layout at the next public information meeting, just to kind of let you see how it looks like.
So Christine, I have one question, comment. The segment north of Kenwood, how is it going to match Lake Drive north of Edgewood into Shorewood? So I'm not sure the final selected alternative for Shorewood part of the Lake Drive segment. So whatever we're doing over here, similarity wise, is it comparable with the segment going north past Kenwood?
As you know, Sam, I am the project manager for both this one and the Shorewood one. Until today, we have been doing parking analysis similar to what we have here, because I don't know if most of you or none of you know, but when we presented an alternative that impacted trees, it just went in the wrong direction. Anyway, long story short, we are going to stay within the footprint of that from face to face. Okay, so we're not doing anything. The only other alternative we are looking at, and we're not at that stage of finalizing it, is we did a parking study similar to what we have here, from removing parking from the westbound and shifting it to the eastbound. Again, things are not finalized, but we are making sure that if there is any difference, there will be a transition point so the cyclist or the traveling public know where they're going, and they just don't suddenly shift and they don't know where they are. So just rest assured we're working together between those two projects.
Okay, thank you.
Gloria, you have your hand raised. You can unmute your microphone.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment about the area at Hartford and Lake Drive where we're talking about people crossing the street. In my opinion, bump outs do not slow the traffic. I think the only things that do slow the traffic are these flashing lights when people press the button and the yellow lights start flashing. They have it in Fox Point and in Whitefish Bay, and the cars do stop. The signs don't seem to work, as other people have mentioned. I don't think bump outs particularly work, and they also make it hard for the snow plows, because we have bump outs on Lake Drive, on Locust, and that isn't very satisfactory either. But I think that flashing light is what really is needed at that point. Also at Linwood and Lake Drive.
Actually, that's an excellent point. Very, very good point. So just to kind of let you know, as we haven't really finalized or even finished our design analysis and approaches, having a flashing light activated by pedestrian crossing, it's something that we're also looking into adding in Village of Shorewood project, so the northern of the Edgewood limit. So just, I think this is something we can work on both segments, so drivers are used to when to stop and not just look for signs more so than flashing lights. I think that will be a good mitigation between both projects. So this is something very positive we can add to both projects.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Roddy, you can unmute your microphone.
Thank you. And again, I would ask, do we have to wait until 2024 for this? This is nothing to do with putting up those flashing signs with changing the roadway. They're on the side of the road, up on the turf. And so I don't want us thinking that, well, we can wait until 2024 when Mr. Alderman Kovac will no longer be in office here. So I'm hoping, Nick, that you will let us know tomorrow or the next day, this week anyway, when that can be moved ahead. You're hearing it from a number of constituents, and I hope the message is getting through to everybody. Thank you.
Definitely noted, Rod. Thank you. Just in note from Sandra, can we provide a traffic plan view versus only sections for traffic going both north and south?
I don't have any plan view. Actually, on the exhibits that we're having during the in-person meeting, we'll probably have those, but not on these slides. We can do that in the next time.
Okay. And then David Loken said he would ask that DPW and WSDOT go to observe the lights at 41st in Oklahoma for an example of them not working, meaning the cars aren't obeying the flashing lights to stop for pedestrians to cross.
See, I just want to add something. I understand and I'm confident 100% of what he's saying. I really don't have to go out there and observe. I am confident of his statement. However, it should be a balance between what the city and DOT can do versus it's just a matter of enforcement. Sometimes enforcement should be the key, not just because we follow the regulation and policies, both federal and state, and these are just years and years or years of research to kind of come up with these guidelines. But like roadway needs maintenance after you build it, enforcement needs to be held in order for people to obey the laws. So maybe this is another approach maybe the alderman can discuss with his other resources.
Okay, there's some comments just saying that the design drives behavior, not the enforcement, which could be, you know, a whole longer conversation, and we have about 8 minutes left in this meeting. So if you want to move to the contact page once again, so people have our information and know how to provide comments. Great, thank you. Just so everyone is aware, if you haven't visited the project website, you can submit comments directly online and you can sign up for updates as well. We will be posting this meeting recording on the project website as well as the presentation. And tomorrow's in-person meeting, we have a handout that provides the same information that we have here that will also be online to view.
I can just add a comment here, Megan. The comment that said it's also the behavior is due to the design. This is 100% true, but there is always exception to the rule here. So I'm not saying it's not true, but it doesn't mean we're not going to take a look at it. We'll definitely do, and we'll follow up.
I will also email the PowerPoint presentation to all those who have signed up for updates. That will be most likely tomorrow or Friday. Just give me some time to get it all put together and update my list.
So I put this screen up. This is something else that we need to know, right?
So yeah, the project website is milwaukee.gov/DPW/Lake Drive. We are also on Facebook and Twitter. We'll post any updates, public meetings, details on those social media platforms as well as next door. So that concludes our meeting. Again, we will have an in-person meeting tomorrow. We hope you can join us. And if you have any questions, please follow up with us. And we hope you have a good night and go Bucks.
Thank you so much, Megan. You did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. That was very good.